lives. You are our refuge and our strength. You are our very present help in trouble and storm. And we give you thanks and we give you praise tonight. In Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. God bless you. Before you take a seat, I'm going to ask you if you can fill up these seats because they're going to come in a little later. And so we have seats right here. Just take it. Leonie, come on up if you could get a little closer. Feel free. Sister Marcia, come up closer. Come on, Lester. Come on. You come on up closer. Okay. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Yeah, I'll stay right there so I can. You can come over here. You can come on this side. All of you watching us online, and we are grateful, amen, to have Dr. Roger Ball with us. We want to thank him for his commitment. I said we're going to extend it for another week, but I do understand his wife told me this. He has something on the calendar for next week. So what we're going to do, though, after we do our financial piece, we're going to have him come back and do parenting classes. We want to talk about relationships with parents, children, and just dealing with healing those relationships. But what we also want to do in the interim, I don't want it just to be for us in the church. We got to get out in our community. We got to get out on the block. We got to invite people to come. We're doing things now that's not simply designed to be for church folks, right? Our next workshops are going to be dealing with our financial health. We're going to have people coming in teaching you how to make more money, how to invest, how to save, how to we're going to work on your credit, fixing your credit. The Bible says a good name is better to be chosen, right? A good name is better to be chosen than silver and gold. And so many times churches, they want people to give, they want people to be financially viable. But in order to do that, you have to get yourself in a position where you're not just existing and surviving, but that you are able to help others and look at where you want to live, what you want to drive, how you want to function, and be able to help people and create a roadmap. So just let you know for that upcoming workshop, for those of you that are interested, that will be here. We want you to see something. I want to make sure, because there's somebody's commenting on the video, make sure we're not live. We're not supposed to be live. We're just streaming on Facebook, on YouTube only, for just a handful of folks that can't be here tonight. So we're not putting this out on social media like that, because we want people to come in the building. We want people to be equipped and to be empowered. So now, anybody has a takeaway they can share with us from last week? A takeaway from last week? Anybody? And what we're going to ask you to do, we're going to have to, for recording purposes, if you can help me, that anytime somebody raised their hand, we're going to take this mic over to them so they can speak in the microphone, because we have to have it, because those that are watching, they can't hear. Yeah, here's another microphone.
Use this one.
Those that are watching and listening, they can't hear when different ones are asking questions. So you can just mute it when it's not being used, and then this way, if somebody has something to say, please raise your hand, and then we can get the microphone over to you so that you can communicate, because we do want those that are listening to us and the recording to go smoothly. So again, good to have all of you, and I'm going to take this opportunity now to turn it into the hands of the one and the only. If you're ready, sir, we are certainly grateful and thankful for the gift that is in this house. If you'll be so kind to put your hands together and thank God for this man of God as he comes to share with us right now.
Thank you, Bishop. Good evening, my brothers and sisters. Thank you very much, Bishop, and how y'all doing? All right. Sorry, I was just... Okay, thank you. All right. So, sort of on the spot, Bishop, I really would want to be here next week, and I have some form of proposal. Maybe we could talk about it, and if we could use maybe the first hour to maybe do some review and recap and make it fun, and maybe you guys could take the first hour and give me a little room to do. I have a presentation from 6 on trauma, and so by 7:45 or so I would be done, and so then I could. So if that works, we could talk about it. All right. This has been so fulfilling for me. I just really enjoy being here with you. So I was very intrigued, and for those who are online, hello, at the conversations we had with those what they sometimes refer to as optical illusions. And so it was so much fun, I decided to bring a few more for you tonight. How about that? I decided to bring a few more for you. So perspective taking, and my wife put this one up here, by the way. It's a willingness to see where the other person is coming from. There's an Indian saying, a Native American saying that says, you don't know what I'm going through until you've walked a mile in my shoes. So we often draw conclusions. Remember, I talk about the ladder of inference. So we sort of, by the way, and we should give a test next week, by the way. Right? A fun test, how about that? A fun test. All right, so we draw conclusions about other people's intentions without having all the information at hand, without having all the facts. And that's something that we do often. And so Israel wandered in the wilderness for some 40 years because someone saw things differently. Because someone saw where one group saw problems, another group saw opportunities. And I think when the financial folks come, they'll talk about, how you use how you maximize opportunities. And so in 33, it indicates that, and there we saw the giants, the sons of Anak, who come from giants, and we were in our eyes as what? And we were in whose eyes as well? In their sight. Now, I am not very worried about how I am viewed in their eyes. I'm really worried about how I'm viewed in my eyes. Because you can't stop people. Yeah, people will see you. I remember once I just hired, it was a long time ago, I was just assembling a team together. And we had hired someone, and I'd met her in person. And so I said to her, I'll be the tall, it was an agency that was predominantly white. I said, it's a tall black man. That's me. When you walk in, you'll see me. Well, actually, it turns out that this young woman who I was hiring, she walked in, and she was about 6'3". All of a sudden, I was a black man, but I wasn't tall. And so there you have it. But Joshua and Caleb, of course, tell them to calm themselves down and says that we are quite able to do it. So perspective. Again, Marcel Post says that the voyage, I love this quote, that the real voyage of discovery consists not in seeing new landscape, but having, what's my computer doing? But having what? But having new eyes. Isn't that powerful? Sometimes there's another derivative of it that talks about the neighbor, this couples who this computer is really acting up. This couples who are constantly criticizing the neighbors about their white sheets and stuff that they hang out on the line outside in the summertime. Oh, they look dingy. They look gray. They need to be bleached properly. And they sat in their dining room and they keep looking out and talking about the people's clothes. Well, until they decided to wash down their windows. All of a sudden, the clothes got white. So it's a perspective that we oftentimes are running with. So here I have one. This one is hard. I still have to tell you. Oh, did we give handouts? Okay. This one is hard. I'm going to tell you what it is. It's an old woman and a young woman. We should come back to that one maybe. Oops, sorry. This doesn't show. I'm going to give you that one for your homework. Read for me, please. Let's go back and do it again. Let's go back. Ready? 1, 2, 3, go. I love you guys. Now you know there's something there that you got. One more time. Together with me. And again, have I been so long with you? Wait until you see another one, then you're going to cry witchcraft. Okay, this one is cool. What do you see? Oh, sorry. First one is like a stone head. You see the stone head like a, yeah, like a Mayan, indigenous monument. But do you see the little girl that is walking? A person. They're wearing a hood. They're like, think about it, it's like in the middle of the winter, and you're looking at them from behind, and they're walking like this with a hood on. Yep. They could be walking like in a cave. Oh, that's the same. Oh. What about that one? My wife did this one too, by the way. What about the face? You didn't do the face? Go ahead. Evil, good, and evil. Good and evil. I actually didn't see that one. I'm like, where? Okay, so we talk about what push our buttons, what pushes your button, the cycle of anger, some tools to manage, and we're going to review, we talked about the ABC model. We're going to recap some of those. In tonight's sessions, we'll go back again and dive deeper, as I promised last week that we would do. We will also go back to the distorted thinking that oftentimes get us in trouble or that really trigger us. We'll talk about assertive, the difference between passive, passive-aggressive, and assertive. We'll talk about those, and conflict resolution model. We'll talk a little bit about anger in our familial spaces, in the family, and some opportunities to practice. Again, this is the arc of anger, sort of the build-up, right? And some people build up really quickly, and some people build up slowly over time. And the worst kinds of anger are the ones that you didn't know that a person was angry. You know what I'm talking about? You're there dancing amongst the daisies. You don't be high-fiving them, and they're steaming. And you don't know that they're angry. And at some point it goes poof. Right? And part of the reason is, and we'll talk about this later, there is a place for anger in our lives. There is a place for anger. Anger is a very natural emotion, and on the first night, I indicated that, in fact, anger is one of, if not the most accessible emotions. When we're frustrated, anger shows up. When we're sad, when we're depressed, anger is usually, and one of the reasons for that is because anger makes us feel most empowered when we're out of control. You notice that? Because it makes you feel as though you could do something. Even if that something is terrible. Even if that something cost you everything. The business of taking a cell phone and it's doing something. Or putting a hole in the wall. It's doing something. This anger is action oriented. And people will prefer, that's why some people, they would prefer for you to be angry with them and show it rather than just sit. How many of you cannot stand the silent treatment? It's the silent treatment, it scrambles the brain. The brain doesn't know what to do with it. The brain says, oh, fight me. Fight me. Because at least when we're fighting, we're talking. Huh? This kind of thing of you sitting down with a remote or lying down with a phone, it is very painful. Because ultimately there's a part of me that says that you think I don't exist. It's the ultimate suffering. Because I'm here, but you treat me as though I'm not here. I want to fight, I want to talk. I want to rage, I want to make love, I want to break bread. But you treat me as though I no longer exist. And I would much prefer a proper fight than that silence. And so, and the thing again is, sometimes you have two people in the same space, and one of them, they demonstrate their control in their silence. And watch this, watch the revelation. And the other person demonstrates their control in their verboseness, in their argumentativeness, in their talking, in their arguing. That's because that silence is out of control for them. But so speaking and arguing and fighting, it makes them feel alive. You see? And so to know and to understand one's own wiring and how you, and where that comes from. Where that comes from. If you grew up in a household where you were told, what you crying for? What you crying for? Don't let that tear fall. Don't let it fall out your eye. Don't. If you, I'll give you, you want something to cry for? I'll give you something to cry for. And so you suck it up. And you hold it in. And it comes out in strange ways. We talked about this a little bit. It comes out in ways like Bishop and I were talking the other night, that it's like a leak in the place. If it's going to, one way or another, you don't have to give it permission. You don't have to legitimize it. You don't have to agree with it. One way or another, it's going to find a way to come out. You know, when our daughter was sick, and she's now a young woman at 20, I mentioned her before. She's 22 years old. But when she was 2 and she had cancer, I remember she had the chemotherapy, and if you know, for those of you who are familiar with that, you know, the horror of treatment is that her low stomach just started turning out, and she would just throw up. There was nothing left for her to throw up, but she would just throw up. And I remember they used to give her this little tiny pills, just tiny, right? So tiny pills, and you would just take it and you put it under her tongue, and it would dissolve, and it would stem all of the throwing up. And I remember she was upstairs, and we had, I think my wife removed a piece of it. We had at the foot of the stairs, we had a mirror that goes from ceiling to floor. And so the pill was downstairs in the kitchen, and she was in our bedroom throwing up. And I dashed out of our bedroom, down the hallways, down the stairs, and as I was at the foot of the stairs, looking at the mirror, there was a man looking back at me. He was so angry. I speak of myself. And it wasn't until I saw myself in that mirror that I realized how angry I was about my baby girl, you know, suffering like that. Right? And sometimes you don't even realize it. Right? So there's the buildup, the physical reactions, the clenched fists, the pacing back and forth, right? The feelings that underlie angers. When I'm vulnerable, when I feel taken advantage of, when I feel as though I'm losing my fight, or I'm losing grip, or I'm losing control, or you don't get what you want. If a lot of us would acknowledge it, we get very angry when we don't get what we want. How many of you in your like to have your way? Have your way, have your way, have your way. No, let's talk the truth. How many of you really, you need to have your way? And when you don't, you really feel some kind of ways. I would invite you to reflect, seriously, reflect on the emotions that you feel when you don't get your way. Think about how broken we sometimes feel, how helpless, how unloved. I'm preaching now. Now, seriously, think about how unloved, uncared for, even if it's just this one time you didn't get your way. You feel as though nobody loves me. Nobody cares about me. Look how hard I work. Look how much I give. Because at the base of anger is some unmet needs. Write that down. At the core of anger is an unmet need. The need for respect, the need for appreciation, the need for community, the need for centrality, the need to matter, the need to be the center of, the need to know that you appreciate. At the base of anger is some needs that have not been met. So, and then there's the explosion where we let it rip, as they say, right? And the aftermath of re-regulation or decompression or homeostasis. And the toll that it oftentimes leaves on our family, on our mental health is real. The toll that anger exacts a particular toll on the human psyche and the human relationships. In church, yes. In church, out of church, someone didn't greet you the way you expected them to. And we talk about the ABC model, we talk about the activating situations, we talk about the underlying belief systems, we talk about the consequences, and we talk about the need to dispute or to challenge the maladaptive beliefs or the twisted, it's another way for it, put it, right? Or the unfounded or baseless belief system, to challenge them. And so here's a great thing for you as we continue this series, to take a more curious stance about what you feel in those moments. I wonder why I feel like this. You know? Someone walks in the room and everybody run to them. I said, why do I feel that way? Or you have been out of church for 3 weeks and someone else has been out of church for 2 weeks, and when they welcome you, you got... And when they welcome them, they got a rousing hip, hip. To lean back and say, I wonder why I'm feeling this way. I promise you, much of that is rooted not in that's one situation. It's rooted in something deeper, something from our childhood, some unmet needs of being second. You remember that time on the playground when you were 9 and they picked you last? That's the same little girl or the same little boy that is experiencing the same emotions again 30 years later. Yeah. Yeah. To be curious. I believe it's one of the greatest gifts we'll give ourselves, to remain curious. And so these were, and we're going to unpack a couple of these, or most of them. So 10 distorted ways of thinking that fuels anger, right? And as I go over them, what I want to invite you to do is to jot down the ones that applies to you. And then we're going to talk about it. Jot down the ones that you could say, I think that's me. So the first one, and let me just say, you have the summary there, but you don't have the breakout. Yeah? Okay. So the first one is all or nothing thinking. Do you remember at least hope not now, like when we were kids, and if I couldn't have the remote to watch what I want to watch, I'm plugging the TV out. I admit that one. Am I the only one that did that? If I can't watch what I want to watch, nobody's watching anything. It's all or nothing, right? Either we go on vacation where I want to go, or I ain't going with you. So all or nothing thinking. All of them people let me tell you about them people over there. All of them people are bad. Right? All of them people are bad. Right? We sort of swiftly summarize people, categorize them, and draw conclusions about them. Can you think of an all or nothing ways or thinking that maybe you have demonstrated? So it also known, and I'm going to come back to your sharing, also known as polarized. This is viewing things in absolute terms. Consider a successful person a perfect partner, a loyal friend, or a good parent, or not, or all or nothing concept. Success is a process of trial and errors, ups and downs. And a loyal friend may what? Well, hold on a minute now. If they're loyal, my expectations is that they'll never let me down. I think that's one to touch a spot for you. Because even the best of us will not get it right every time. even the best of us will make decisions on bits and pieces of information that you don't realize that I didn't have. And as a result of that, I made a boo-boo. But you can't hear that I didn't. And instead of you really listening, this is you. I'm listening. Let me hear what you have to say. Let me hear you. No, to really listen. So we should move to the place of reframing this all or nothing thinking by sometimes occupy the gray. I love that. I think the gray is poetry. I think the gray is salvific. I think the gray is human. I think the gray is where love lives. Yes. I think the gray is where grace lives. I think the gray is where la vida es muy bella, is where the light becomes beautiful. Because we don't get it right all the time. It's also where we learn to let go of our anger. Anger is fueled by emotions and neurochemicals in our bloodstream. And if we're not careful, what we talked about last week is sort of the anger habit of responding a certain way consistently. It becomes us. So, becoming more flexible, more nuanced, less black and white, that even the person who is your best friend may still make mistakes. Can you think of, turn to your elbow partner, turn to your neighbor, say neighbor, right? Turn to someone and talk about a time where you took on some black and white thinking, absolutism, all or nothing. Think about a time when you just couldn't accept the gray.
Dr. Ball, yes. I have a question for you.
Yes.
I remember talking to my bishop, and I said to him, I'm a all or nothing kind of guy.
I want to hear this.
And what I meant by that was that I don't half step.
Yeah.
If I'm going to be in a relationship with you, everything is in there.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be, you're not going to have 5% of me or 3% of me.
Yeah.
Either you have all of me or you have none of me. And that's just how I think.
Yeah.
So I want to kind of reconcile that thought process. And does it relate to this? Yeah. Or is that a whole different template we're looking at?
I think it may be a different template, but it may be a different template, but it could coexist in both templates, right? And so people who are sort of all or nothing, they operate on different principles. They are usually, often than not, sort of type A personalities, right? When they go at something, they go hard, right? When they discontinue something, they don't want to see it, they don't want to hear it, even if they were eating it yesterday, right? It's like, right? It's like, if they're loyal, they will go to the ends of the earth and they will trample over any demons or bull, buck, and dove. You know, like they'll trample over anything just to get there to support you. And what I find, right, with those folks is that it's good and it's great until life sort of throws you a curveball. And what you're confronted is not the inconsistency of the other, but the rigidity of the self. That it turns out that all or nothing doesn't always work. There are times when you have to live in the gray. You have to compromise. Like the example of, of where your wife says, I don't need you to come upstairs with me. You your all or nothing mind made you felt wounded because you're in. I want to make sure you're good. Make sure you're safe. And then all of a sudden, that's the curveball. And it crushes you a little bit. And then you have to jiu-jitsu your brain. You have to reorient and reorganize. In the absence of that reorientation, you get all kinds of conflicts begin to spring up because you're not willing to adjust to the changing winds or to the new realities. Think about a person who puts together a puzzle or something the same way every single time, and all of a sudden you get the same thing, but it's constructed a different way, and it throws you for a loop.
I have another question. Going back to what you mentioned before regarding anger and those that don't speak, right?
Yeah.
What would be the difference then between a person that's trying to learn not to speak? You know, I have my philosophy in handling situations now, and I've come a long way in my own head, is that as bad as it is me right now, let's not respond to how it is right now.
Yeah.
Because maybe, and my thought is that maybe there's something I'm not seeing, and if I respond now, I'll make a complete fool out of myself, because then you'll see it later on and realize, you know what, you overcompensated. I've learned that from having children, right? Mm-hmm. So, you know, the kids growing up in school, the school calls you and said, this happens.
Yeah.
And you're headed to the school. You get in your car, you're going to the school.
Yeah.
And you have to sign in and go up to the principal's office, and you're just outraged.
Yep.
And then you can really make things worse than what they need to be because you overcompensated, and it wasn't that way.
Or your kids having to say, Dad. It's just like, yeah. Yeah. So ask me the question again. I get the example that you gave.
So my point is that, so I'm the kind of person, I don't want to be irrational. I don't want to blow up. But I think that I have to find a balance, because then I'll watch it. You can do something to me. You can say something very bad about me, and I heard it because I heard it.
Yeah.
And you don't know how I heard it.
Yeah.
And I can say to myself, wow. And you know what? I'll look at you and I won't even let it affect me. Yeah. And I'll still love you, and I'll still give you food, and you will never know that I knew what you did.
That's a movie. I know what you did last I know what you did last summer. You know,
and I almost want to feel like, like you said the first night, the water is running and it's probably leaking somewhere else, right? But I try, because especially dealing with people are transient, people are fickle. 1 minute they want to build a tabernacle for Moses, Elijah, and Jesus, and the next minute they'll say crucify him.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I've kind of divorced myself from having a need to be validated by people.
Expectations, right? Shifting expectations.
And so then if I divorce myself from the need to be validated, then you can't really disappoint me that way.
Yeah.
Okay? You can disappoint me, but I will not take it as deep, because I have no much, if I don't have an expectation, if you buy, a cheap car, you don't have much of an expectation that has 200,000 miles on there. Yeah. You don't expect it to take you from here to Florida and back.
You'll be happy if it does, but if it doesn't, you'll leave it on the side of the road, take the plates off, and keep moving.
And go to Hertz and rent the car.
So, and I admit, I thought much about that conversation since the last time, when you and I sat here and we spoke about it. And I thought I dug deeper for myself in thinking about it. And so I think so we talked about it on your end, but I think on the other person's end, and it depends on the nature of the relationship, right? I think that some people just shouldn't even be bothered with your time. They're not worth, no, but I'm serious. They're not, it's not necessary to invest that level of time and energy. But what I thought about that we didn't talk about last week is, I thought about who would that person be? And what responsibility do we have to that person to say, why did you say that? Yes. So how do we also, and especially if we're responsible for people's growth and development, I think in some ways, those folks have to, because if they did it to you, they're going to do it to Sue and you, right? And so maybe you have a role to play in saying, I have to tell you, That was shady. That wasn't cool. What's that? And you could even coach it like this. I'm going to be honest with you. Generally, I don't even, I keep it pushing. I just keep moving. But I care about you. And I care about your growth. And I would want you to know that this was what was said, this is what was done. And it has the potential of doing some serious harm to our community. And I would want for you to, don't think I'm mad at you. I'm not mad. But I want for you to know the propensity or the damages that this kind of ways of being can do. And I love you. And I love you. So I think it's twofold. It's sort of the part of how it may seep in on us. But how does that left unchecked? What we refer to as the broken window theory, Gadwell's book on Tipping Point. And Gadwell says that, to continue with the same metaphor, Gadwell said it goes like this. There's a little hole, let's say at your house, there's a little hole in your the vent that goes from in your attic. And it turns out that a couple of the vents got rusty, like you see like those things behind you there? A couple of them got rusty and they sort of fall down like that. Well, the pigeons decide that, oh, it's warm in here. So the pigeons move in. Then they start laying their eggs. And then the rats decide that, guess what? I'm coming in for the baby pigeons. And then the raccoons starts coming in. And before you know it, you have Noah's Ark living in your attic. Why? Because what it says is that small breakage, small deterioration left unchecked will bring the entire house down. That's what they said, right? Small deterioration that's left unchecked brings the entire house down. And you'll see it in human relationships. A person start doing some bad behaviors and you don't say anything. They do a little more, you don't say anything. You do a little more, you don't say anything. And before you know it, they're just all out. And you said, excuse me, what? He said, you didn't say anything last year Wednesday, so what are you going to say something now? And so I find it's best you name it up front. And if you don't, and what's clear for you, Bishop, is that you choose, right? You choose, and you're not masking that it doesn't hurt when it really stings. But I think that you have to sort of think about, is it worth the time and the investment? How might it affect me? And what good might I do for this person by naming it in love to them? Hope that helps.
I think that was good. I have no other question, Dr. Ball. I know that you got a lot of slides, but as I sit and watch and listen, I want to be relevant as well. Yeah. How long do you think it should take for a person to change?
That's a good question.
And I'm asking that question because, so I've been leading this ministry about 27 years. Mm-hmm. And I've watched people, 5 years, 10 years, I know this is not prison. We're not get credit for amount of years served. Mm-hmm. You actually have to change.
Yes.
And but when I watch people, and we have sessions like these, and we're talking about conflict resolution, and we're talking about integrity, and we're talking about, and I notice that the more you talk about certain subject matters, is the more it manifests. Mm-hmm. So you're talking about conflict resolution, and you have more conflict.
Yeah.
Talk about mental health, and you have more. Yeah. No, I didn't say that. Now I didn't say that. We're live. I'm not going to be
episodes.
I'm going to be very careful what I'm saying, right? But seriously speaking, as we're talking tonight, we're talking about change and taking these tools, and we're sitting here. We're not screaming. There's not an organ. We're not laying hands and splashing oil, and we're sitting and having a conversation.
Yeah.
And so I have to sit back and think to myself, okay, if you give it in pill form, you give it in an IV, you give it in liquid form, you mix it into cereal. At what point should a person say, see themselves and say, you know what, let me try to do better? So I'm asking you what your thoughts are concerning that, and what prevents people from seeing what needs to be fixed so we can address ourselves. You know, because even since we were talking about conflict resolution, you know, things that have happened outside of church, and I said, you know what, man, I'm so glad I have my conflict resolution skills on today. I'm so glad I'm learning to manage myself. You know, I was across the street about a week ago, and I was in the restaurant looking across the street. This guy was parking. My truck was parked outside. And all of a sudden, I see my truck shake. And I said, and the guy just goes ahead and parks behind me and goes to the restaurant. So I came out and I said, sir, you do realize you just banged up my truck, right? I was not angry. I was like, I'm doing better. There was no anger.
Yeah.
I was like, he just busted my truck, man.
Yeah.
He just opened up his license and gave me his license and his paperwork. I took a picture of it. And I mean, it wasn't a big deal.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I would even be upset with that in times past, but because it's material things. And it's not even about what people do, it's how they come off after the
Yeah.
fact.
That's right. That's
You know,
right.
like, well, you shouldn't have put your truck here.
Yeah.
Then
Yeah.
that turns off another switch inside of me.
That's right. That's right.
And
That's right.
yeah, so, but I really want to go back to that question though. How long should it take? I know everybody's different, but I want to get your perspective on this.
Yeah. Bell Hooks has a book. It's a great book. That's called The Will to Change. About the will to change. And I talk with, including like educators often, about, I'm very interested in that question actually. And the way I usually engage the conversation is, what's the dosage? What's the will? And what's the dosage of the lesson, 40 years in the wilderness? That was their dosage. 40 years to learn the lesson, one could argue. The second is, so the first again is, how much of the lesson do people need consistently in order to change? That's just one piece of it. Let me unpack it. And sometimes we assume that people know, and they don't know. There is this kind of knowing, there's this kind of knowing. And then there is hands, you know, like doing kind of knowing. And so part of the first question is around, what does the lessons look like that causes people to change? So I could say, you really need to learn to listen better. You need to learn to listen to your spouse. You need to learn to listen to your parents. You need to learn to listen to your preacher. Well, if a person doesn't know how to listen, then it would be difficult. Now I have to sit down with them and say, okay, so whatever you're thinking in your head, I need for you to suspend it and be fully present. I need for you to not conjure up what you're going to say. I need for you to show eye contact, nod your head, lean forward, be fully present, ask clarifying questions, repeat after me, what I heard you said was this. Please tell me if I heard you right. You see all of those things? I would have to bring the person through all of those activities and then some in teaching them how to listen. So when I say you need to learn to listen, that's a statement. The question is, how are we teaching people the lessons, and how often, what's the dosage do people need? And then the second, which is probably most important, do they really want to change? Do they want to change? People live in chaos, and you said, I don't know how you do it. You ever see a person who is a hoarder? You don't know how they could possibly do it. But they do it every single day. They know everything is right. Right? And so do they want to change? Are they prepared to risk the as is for something new? That's it, isn't it? Are they prepared to risk where I've been, how I've been doing it, how I've gotten used to it? How many of you have some old shoes you don't want to give up? My wife went into my closet the other day and she cleared out almost everything. All my shoes. Gone. Gone. I'm talking shoes I've had since, well, relax now, come on. All of them gone. When I say gone, it was as though she was moving out on me or something. It was as though someone robbed my closet. If she was waiting on me to get rid of those shoes, I wouldn't. I'm going to be honest with you. I wouldn't have gotten rid of them because they're not bothering anybody. They are mine. I don't have to wear it for it to be mine. Even if it's sitting there for 20 years, it's mine. And I know where it is. And I look at it and say, you all right? One of these days, we're gonna walk. But it feels belonging. It's like eating mac and cheese. It's like eating some rundown or something. It's like it feels it's near. And the business of changing requires, I want you to hear this. The business of changing requires a crisis. Change is a crisis. It's because it's a complete deviation from where you've been, what you know. And so when you ask how long, it really is the person willing to undergo a crisis, an existential crisis. Not just a crisis, but an existential crisis. Okay? Yes.
I believe that things sometimes need to be more direct, right? So when Bishop was speaking about how long it takes a person to change, like for example, at my job, my director will come to me and say, Adrian, this happened with this staff, and we have to do a staff meeting. And I'll say to myself, okay, just go directly to the person, you know? So it's okay to let everyone be aware, but you can have the staff meeting, but you have to have that one-on-one with that person, because a leader or a supervisor or a director could throw a word out there or have a meeting and hoping that that person catch it. They're not catching it. They're looking at maybe it's for somebody else, right? So it's important to have that one-on-one, and the contrary with that is when a person has been unchecked for so long and been doing their own thing, their own way for so long, then they get offended. Who are you to check me because I've been unchecked all this time? Yeah. Who checked Jezebel? Nobody. Yeah. Right? Yeah.
I love that. And the story is, I have a billion stories in my head. The story is told about a local pastor with this, small congregation, and it snowed cats and dogs. It snowed. Nobody came out to church except this one little sister who gives plenty of trouble. And the pastor says, oh, yes. Says, I catch you now. And the pastor said, now I'm going to preach the sermon to her that I've always wanted to preach. Turn your Bibles. Turn your Bible. And the pastor opened the Bible. He preached. He made an altar call and everything. And then at the end of the service, the sister came up and greeted him and says, Pastor, it's a shame they weren't here to hear this sermon. Pastor said, I'm done. I'm done. And on that point, can I just make another point? what I found, Bishop and friends, is that people who have issues with boundaries, people who are not nuanced. Some of us live our lives in very nuanced ways. I know, I could see if you're not feeling me. I sort of move through the world very nimbly. Like, you know what I'm talking about? You could tell if someone is not doing well. You said, are you all right? I don't see you smiling like the way you used to, right? Someone is going to, like, you know when something is going on. And then some people just come kick off the door and they don't notice anyone or anything around them. And they step on your boundaries. They come in your room. They drink your coffee without asking. They're just like, there's no boundaries. And then you are a person who like nimbly and like to say, like to do it in a calm, nice way or, polite ways. And I said this the last time. People are like that. You can't be nimble with them. You have to just tell them the truth. Because actually their brain doesn't register for them. You have to say it so, there's a phrase that says, say it so I could hear it. You have to say it so they could hear it. And sometimes that makes you feel uncomfortable. But that is the art of, adjusting your communication style based on how that person's brain is wired. Right? You can't just come in my office and just sit on my chair and kick your foot on my desk as though you live here. Don't do it. I invited you to a brunch at my house. I didn't tell you to come kick off your foot and your foot and clip your toenails in my living room. No, you're bone and bright. No, but some people will not see any problems with that, and you have to name it for them. In love, you have to tell them, no, don't do it. Yes.
Sorry. My question is, what would be the approach in that situation? Because you have people that would say, if you are direct, you're being rude, right? And it may not be that you're being rude, but you are direct, and a lot of people, they're not accustomed to that. So how would you say is the best way to approach that?
Yeah, we're going to talk, and we have it here a little bit later on assertive communication. I think it was a sister that was here last week. Yeah. She said, you just tell it like it is. I think some people you just have to be direct with them. And we're going to have some role playing as well later. That was you? You said you just... Not beating around the bush. You're just going to tell people the truth. Yep. Yeah.
Dr. Ball, the challenges, like you were saying a while ago, one of the challenges I find out with this generation, like when Paul says, "Oh, foolish Galatians, who had bewitched you?"
Yeah.
If you said that today,
yeah.
I remember I was at a Spanish church years ago, and I was teaching about finances and getting your accounting in order. I said, if the IRS comes into church and things are out of order, ignorance will not be an excuse.
Yeah.
And they were offended that this black guy came in their church and called them ignorant. I didn't say they were ignorant. I said, if the government comes in here and the books are not in order, and people were hurt, I don't think I was being abusive. I don't think I was being aggressive. I think I was just saying, if it's not in order, but this generation is so pickled.
It's true.
If you say, look, you can't, you just can't have your kids running the water in the bathroom like that. We spend a lot of money, $20,000 a year is a water bill here.
Yeah.
So you can't just have it, oh, I'm offended.
Yeah.
I'm offended. I'm not going back to that church because I went to wash my hands and my kids was running the water and playing with the soap. And I told them, you can't, the usher said your kids cannot do this. And then there's an offense.
Yeah.
So you talk about being direct. You didn't say, it's good if we don't waste water in the church. No. Don't let your kids run the water, please.
Yes.
And so that's the challenge. Like my brother was saying about being direct. This generation is so, it's just so fickle. If Paul said, foolish Galatians, no one came and said, you know what? How dare him call us Galatians foolish?
Yeah. Yeah, and you're right. And because I am on the university campus and I work with a lot of many universities in placing graduate students, and I cannot tell you, sometimes I have to really wonder. I had a graduate student that ran out of the office the other day, talk about she's like feeling uneasy. Uneasy about what? Because nobody asked you to do something and you felt as though you weren't doing what everybody was doing. You felt left out, so you left work. I said, you what? Where you at? I was once at a church, and these two teenagers was up under the stairs, downstairs. I said, hey! Everybody was upstairs praising the Lord, and they were downstairs praising. I said, what? I said, hey. I said, come on, you're in church. What kind of business is? Do you know that? That child went and told her mother, and her mother accosted me. And I was a pastor in the organization, is a pastor in the organization. And she said, do you know my daughter? Do you know when she got baptized? Do you know that she grew up in this church? Who gave you the right to? I said, excuse me. So when you talk about fickle, you're right. And it is the death of community. It's the death of community and the birth of individuality. Believe that you're all sustaining, all powerful, have all what it takes to raise them from the cradle to the grave. And that's not true. You need eyes everywhere. You need love everywhere. You need other people. The book that I recently published, there's a chapter in there for school administrators and school folks, is learning to love other people's children. And because I love your kid, I could tell them, turn off that pipe. Turn off the pipe. That's what I tell my 8-year-old at home. She goes in my bathroom and she set up all the thing and she runs the water and she has this doll and she has that. I said, excuse me. Turn off the pipe. Turn it off. I know why it feels good and it feels therapeutic. Go do it at your house. Don't do it here. But people don't want to hear that. And one of the reasons for that is because a point of correction is a symbol of that you don't love us. And I do a workshop with teachers, and the root of the word discipline is to teach, not to punish. Right? So discipline is to teach, not to punish. But when people believe that discipline is a punishment, then you get sort of that combative response. I don't even know where we are right
You know, the scripture says, this is good because I think we're hearing what we need to hear right now. Because the Bible said the word is given for reproof,
Yes.
for correction,
That's right.
and for instruction.
Yes.
Right? That the child of God might be fully furnished or fully equipped or fully matured.
Yes.
This generation doesn't want anything about that. This generation wants to come into church today, be ordained tomorrow, and want to be launched into ministry next year.
Yeah.
Right? And they're not equipped. And I think that's one of the reasons why, I saw my sister had a post earlier. You have all these churches, especially in the minority communities, and I'm not trying to get into all that right now, but to me, it's a testimony of the lack of emotional maturity in our communities.
Yeah.
Because in other communities, you have a synagogue, you have a Catholic church,
Yeah.
you don't have 10 Catholic churches, 10 synagogues. You go up to New Rochelle on a Saturday, they're pushing their stroller, they're all going to one synagogue.
Yes. Yes.
No one is trying to break away and start a synagogue in the hotel down the road.
Yeah. Yeah.
In our community, we don't have that. We say, turn the water off. I'm not going back to that church.
Yeah.
You know what? And get their little cronies, their little friends, see it over and over again. Yeah. And they want to start their little Living Waters ministries.
You are too good. You're too good. but let it flow. Yes. flow from Aaron's beard, right? Can I tell you, and I want to get back to this here, but can I just tell you that, and you know, there is something actually to be said about this, and this conversation is not for now, but I'm going to drop a bit here. If you look at Old Testament especially, and New Testament to a large extent, the journey and the relationality and the salvation experience has always been in community. You notice that? God led the people in community. There was no all this individual, everything is individualized. Walter Brueggemann, one of his great books, I strongly encourage all of you to get it. The book is called A Journey into Community by Walter Brueggemann, one of the great Protestant theologians. Really make the case about the importance of community. And so when we remove marriages from community, divorce rate goes up. How wonderful it is for one brother to be able to talk to another brother, to be able to talk to another brother about marriage, and a sister talking to the sisters, or parents talking to parents about a teenager that is giving trouble. It's critically important. A journey into, what did I say? The journey into the common good is Walter Brueggemann. Yeah. The Journey into the Common Good is the name of the book. And so the importance of community is critically important, and it is the absence of community that causes that. Remember, some of us grew up in the Caribbean. Anyone from your neighborhood was able, you weren't only hiding from your parents, you were hiding from your neighbors that lived 10 houses down, because they felt as though they had a responsibility for you as well into the common good, right? Yeah.
So, I know everyone's talking about being assertive or being direct. So I think that's the issue that I have, and I know it stems from my childhood, that I guess I was always talked to as a child, and then as I became an adult, still spoken to as a child. So I take how people bring things to me, I have a problem with it. So I think your delivery is very important to me, because I feel like, well, who are you talking to? Especially now it's me being an adult. Well, who are you speaking to? Like, we can settle this. So I go back. I go back into that, he'll say that all the time, like, you have an issue from your childhood, you got to calm down. I don't like it at all. So I know that's something I have to deal with.
Well, and that's a good place to start. I'm telling you, people, you may not believe me, but I'm telling you, that little girl and that little boy is always here. No, it's really true. You think that they're far, they're not far. They are always, always, always here. They're near, they're personal, they're present, they're bold, they're loud. They are, somebody said they're needy. They are here. Yes.
See, now my family don't want me to tell on them. Okay. So then how would you get rid of that? Not that you want to get rid of them, but you want to leave them back there and move forward. So, I mean, and I know, we have to get delivered from things, but do you go back to deliver that little girl that went through that or felt that way? And the other thing is, I want to say, like, today, when I was at work, there's a little girl named Victoria, and I just need a little help with this. And my sisters could remember, well, one of them might. My brother's god sister had got raped and killed. We was little girls, and we were all together. When they called out the little girl, I have a little girl where I work at named Victoria. They called out her name Vicky, one of the kids, and the way they said it, it triggered something in me. And I stopped, and it was like I was frozen for a minute. And then it was like I just came back through. And it was because when she did get raped and killed, you remember, Michelle? when she got raped and killed, we were all in the park together. And she wanted to use the bathroom, and her older sister told her, no, wait. And she didn't wait. And when she went in the building, that's when it happened.
Well, that's very painful to begin with. And oftentimes, we assume that, let's say because it wasn't your family, or just maybe the time that you grew up in, that is so sad, and we move forward. But Vicky has not left you, because Vicky was probably your friend. You were in the same space. That is ultimate trauma. And so if there was no space for you to talk through, so this is part of the problem, especially in our community. The way through it is to get to it. And if you was that little girl, I'm tell you how emotions work. If you were that little girl at that time, it's almost as though the emotions that you felt then, remember we talk about the brain development and the brain stem, the bottom, that's where we store it. Whatever you felt in that time, because it wasn't processed, she could help me to teach some of this stuff here, right? Because it wasn't processed out, because you didn't talk about it, tell me where you were when it happened. What games were you playing when it happened to Vicky? What did you see? What do you remember? It's not your fault. To the sister, it wasn't your fault. The person who did it, they're responsible for it. You still need to play. We may not go back to that park, but I need you to go to a park. And I need for you to play again. And we're going to say a prayer for Vicky's family. And I want you to know I'm going to keep you safe. I'm going to keep you safe. And we're so sorry for Vicky and what has happened to her. But I love you. And when you get up in the night and you're having those nightmares, I'm going to curl up next to you in the bed. I'm going to tell you I'm here. And I'm going to process it with you. And when you ask me, so Daddy, where do you think Vicky went? She's in the arms of God. Might that happen to me? No, baby. We're going to make sure that you're safe. And so to talk about it and to process all of this out. And what did you hear? Why is that important? Because maybe some of those little kids even heard something. And so if you don't process these things out, it's like, think about like Lot's wife. That's right. You get frozen in time. And whether you're 10, whether you're 20, whether you're 40, whether you're 50, whether you're 60, that emotions, I'm not talking about sort of a vague, sort of a amorphous, kind of, mirage that lingers a little bit. I'm talking about the raw, unspent, real, blunt, present, all of it. It gets frozen in time and it gets locked in your brain. And anything that moves like the park, that sounds like the park, that becomes anything that it resembles, smell, sight, sound, all of those things, it grabs you like that and it drags you right back. So like what you heard today, if it was today or whenever it was, today it grabs you. How many years ago was that? Oh. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. Mm. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I really appreciate you sharing, and I want to encourage you to want to keep Vicky's memory alive beyond her the awful and traumatic way. Clearly, she was your friend, but to keep her memory, not just her death, but her memories alive, and to talk about it. Talk about it. Yeah. Yeah.
We
Just
were just told to be quiet and
Yeah.
don't say anything else because it was the mother's boyfriend that did it.
So the shame in the community, and as a result of that, they put a lid on it. And so little children didn't get to grieve properly. Little children didn't get to remember and memorialize and be told that they themselves are safe. Because if it happens, it's like every time any of us go to a funeral, we imagine our own death. True or false?
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. And so for the kids, for a 9-year-old, as a 40-something-year-old man, when I'm sitting there and they're talking about John Doe lying there, I could say, well, maybe they'll say some of that about me. When you have a 9-year-old, 8-year-old, they're saying that about Vicky, the 9-year-old brain is thinking that. And if I go a little step further, like that is the age what we call young people sort of, they take on herd mentality. Pay attention to 9 and 10 and 12 and 13-year-old. They do everything together. There's some lack of individuations and differentiation that takes place. They see themselves as extensions of each other. And so when that happens, it's as though part of her died. Appreciate
Dr. Hurd, I want to say it, Dr. Hurd. That was
Who?
Dr. Hurd was actually a great friend of mine. He was a counselor. He was one of my
Because I said
Professors.
the herd mentality.
yeah, he said Hurd.
That's what
He
happened.
was a good friend of mine. He passed away. But Dr. Ball, so I want to thank you for sharing that because, and I'm glad that we've created this space.
Yeah.
This is the journey that we're on. This is just another extension of the Real Talk team. But seriously speaking, just as Leslie was sharing, and I'm realizing how all of us here have trauma that we hold on to.
Yeah.
You know, and just hearing the story about Vicky, it's almost I could visualize it. I can watch the whole thing, you know, and so I appreciate it. I think that, can we just clap our hands? Thank God for this moment. And thank you for just how you presented that in a way that she could have shared that because, you know, we don't even know how holding on to all these different things, how it's affecting us.
Yeah. Yeah, they stay with us until we, until we give, you know, there's a great quote that says, that which we cannot put into words, we cannot put to rest. That which we cannot put into words, we cannot put to rest. And we need to find words because words become the vehicle. Words become the vehicle that carry us towards our healing. It's true. It's true. Think about the child who is bitter and angry with their parents, and it will last for years. And like who was it that said it? Someone said about their father. I try to remember. I was at some place. Someone was talking about I'm going to remember it, but just not now. It was at some conference or something. Someone was talking about how it is that it took their son to sit down with their granddad. We were in Canada a month ago. And it took their son to sit down with their granddad when he was visiting and say to him, "My dad is not angry with you. My dad thinks the world of you." It took another generation to say to Grandpa, Dad is not angry. Dad loves you. And that just cracked open everything. Because the two older generation, they didn't have the words, the language to facilitate a conversation about whatever happened to them decades ago. And here is this young preppy who says, "Yo, Grandpa, I love you. And my dad is crazy about you too." And that was the door that opened for 3 generations. Words. 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 They wound and they heal. They revive, they destroy. They tell people that they're black as this and people believe it. Or that they're MAGA, or that they're plump, or that they're this, or that they're good for nothing, or that they're never going to amount to anything. Or that you are a shining star. You are everything to me. I would go to the ends of the world and back. I would climb mountains for you. I would give my last breath for you. That's how much you mean to me. That's how much you mean to me. Words. So we need words, more of it, and better ones too. That's another story. We need better words. I don't know where to go after this. I'm just telling you, I don't know where to go. Yes. See, this is why we have to come back next week and try to figure this out.
I have a question. How do you get to the heart and the core of a person that obviously has a lot of walls, counterfeit protection, and you can see, right? And just, you can watch a person for so long and so many years, and you can see pattern, and is easily accessible, right? So do you continue to just show them love? And you can show love at times, and they're not receptive to that love because they think they're okay.
Yeah.
So what are you supposed to do?
Yeah, I find that people, what you see as walls, I see as survival. What you see as standoffish, I see as the only way I know how. What you see as quiet, I see as serene. And I find that people put up walls to protect themselves. I find that people will oftentimes take those walls down if they know that they're safe. Sometimes. Sometimes the walls have been up so long that it's like the man who went to the tailor and asked the tailor to make a suit, and the tailor, I don't know what kind of tailor that is, but the tailor make a suit, and the man says, "This suit is so big." The tailor says, "Take this hand, just do this hand like this, and this foot, just bring it in a little bit like that, and then just walk out like this." And so the man walked out, and someone saw him and said, "Whoa! For a man's body that's so crooked, that suit fits him perfectly." Sometimes we've contorted ourselves to fit something that doesn't fit us. But we've done it so long that after time, it's like the way I sit down. I have a bad habit of sitting down, hunching my back. My wife passed behind me and said, and my sons pass behind me and they said, "Sit up, Dad." Right? They're constantly telling me to sit. And you know what? When I sit up, guess how I feel? No. No, I don't feel better. You know why I don't feel better? Because my resting position, my homeostasis, my default position is this. So when someone is trying to get me to sit up ergonomically properly, it feels weird. All of my muscles starts crying. And so I slowly sort of go back there. So sometimes it's a matter of safety, protection, and sometimes we carry that protection when it's no longer necessary. Because the brain is now wired for that. Because we've just been through too much for too long to be able to let our guards down. I'm not letting my guards down. Right?
And you said that we carry that protection state for so long. Could it be then that we're looking for opportunities to say, see, this is why I'm in protection mode. We're always looking for the opportunity to prove this is why I need to remain in this space.
Yes, and at the slightest evidence, because your brain already tell you, don't trust them. Protect yourself at all costs. And so the slightest glitch, you said, I'm retreating way back. I'm putting on back my armor. Y'all could keep it, right? Like you go right back to your default position. And so, but the question still, Bishop, you ask it, my sister, and you ask it as well. It's really the same question. It comes at different ways, but it's really the same question, like about how do you change? So I explained a couple of things. That one thing I do want to add, I'd said it in a word, but may need to unpack it a little bit more, and that is the need for practice. If you're a nurse, your wife is a nurse. If you're a nurse, you do not graduate from nursing school without having some form of practicum. If you're a doctor, many professions, carpentry, you have to have some form of what? Practice or practicum, apprenticeship. The problem with our faith community oftentimes, James was right. You all think James was joking. James is talking about the doctor stuff. He's talking about the nursing stuff, the carpentry stuff. When James says faith without works, what James is really saying is that, and I think in a way sometimes we reduce it to like if you're not doing it. What James is saying is that the thing that you believe, the things that we say we're aspiring to, the only way we get there is through some degree of practicum. You see what I'm saying? I could say to you, right, and this is how I trick my students all the time. I say to them, so how would you say if a child or whomever it is, if a person, just lost a family member, how would you comfort them? I said, well, I would tell them that I'm so sorry and this is really, really, and then I just do like this. I pull up 2 chairs. Put a person in this chair and put a person in this chair. I said, now practice it. And what you always discover is that whatever you have in your head, it's much harder to do it in person. My phone is buzzing, and I know that tonight is going to be a long night because of things that are going on across the borough. And I'm saying that because there's a likelihood that tomorrow I'm going to walk into a school building. In fact, I know I'm going to walk into a school building tomorrow. And I'm going to sit in the conference room in the principal's office. And I'm going to go through a litany of things. When you go to the classroom, you're going to say this. You're going to say, I am so sorry, guys. I have some really sad news to tell you. And I'll practice with them several times. And then this is what often happens. The principal walks into the classroom, and he or she opens their mouth, and guess what happens? The voice cracks, and everything that they were thinking of saying that we practice in the office, it goes out the window. The sermons that you hear, the stuff that are preached, the stuff that are taught, the only way, I'm done with that was a good word. I'm done with it. It's old. No, I'm serious. I'm done with it. People jump up and say, hallelujah, glory, and it's so wonderful, and they go, and it's the same thing. if you're not practicing it, you have to practice it. But you have to have the will to say, you know what? You know, like what David says, you know, like in Psalm 51, you get the sense that this was a crisis. That's why I'm telling you, in order to change, you have to experience crisis. David's crisis wasn't Bathsheba upstairs. David's crisis wasn't the death of his son. You know what his crisis was? His crisis was when he was confronted with himself. The crisis is when you're confronted with yourself and who you are, and that you must now, finally, you must now go home and face the real you, the mean you, the angry you, the covetous you, the jealous you, the cantankerous you, the you that likes to fight, the you that you know that it's not the best version of yourself. But the change comes, not when they leave you alone. The change comes when you're willing to finally, as Paul says, finally, my brethren, when you're willing to face yourself. And that is the crisis.
You know, Dr. Baldwin, the scripture says that, you know, a child left unto himself will bring his father shame.
Yes.
So that's exactly what you're saying.
Yes.
If there's no confrontation, this is only going to become a shameful situation at some junction or another.
Yes. Yes. It eats away at everything that's good and beautiful. I have a sense the time is up.
Well, it's 1:45, and I'm thinking that we're going to need some time, like just how Leslie was speaking a while ago, and sharing. And I'm realizing that more and more, we need more and more of that than we need to have. That's why we paused everything. We're not doing church as normal tonight, because even the very people that are teaching the Word of God are not even living what they're teaching. And not in a negative sense, in the sense that they're living a sinful life, but the principles that you're sharing can be way beyond you, and you're not even applying them to your life.
That's right. You don't know how.
Exactly. But I love what you said tonight, right? You said that if we don't know how to put it in words, how did you say it again? Come on, somebody help me. How did you? Well, we cannot put in. I mean, I'm going to put it on my page sometime tonight. But I think how many think that's absolutely amazing? What we cannot put in words. And the truth be told, so this past weekend we had an opportunity, my wife and some of the Real Talk team members, we were at a particular place with people that lost loved ones in. And I'm realizing that what you just said is so profound, even for me personally. I was thinking years ago, when I was in second grade, you know, coming from Jamaica as a child, coming to America, especially in the cold, and when you're young, you're outside, you're playing, and you have a stick with a tire, and you know, you know how to have fun with simple stuff. So I remember, as Leslie was talking, she helped me, when she was talking, it brought this up, and I realized that I personally, so we're just having a conversation now.
Yep.
The service over, now we're just having a conversation.
Just
They're just listening and honest, right? So in my class in second grade, we were out in the yard playing, and somebody threw an acorn and hit this child in his face with it. And he told the teacher that I did it. So I didn't do it. I know nothing about it. So we came back from recess. The teacher put me in a corner. Now, when you come from the island and a majority of the class is Caucasian, and you're put in a corner, you're like a monkey in a cage. You understand what I mean? Because you don't even know how to talk properly. You don't say 7 years old. So how old are you? Me 7 years old.
Yes.
You say years old.
Yes.
Your parents don't have a lot, so you have, you know, I remember I used to wear my father's socks to school, and the kids would come, and they're like, look at your socks. And they'll pull my socks like this, and, you know, being bullied, right? And so what I realized when I got to be a teenager, why I became the person I am, because the whole world's going to pay, right? So I'm put in the corner, and the teacher says to me, you're not coming out of the corner until you confess what you've done. And I'm like, I can't confess because I didn't do it. and I'm in the corner, and everybody's having fun. Then they had a kid that had a birthday, and they were eating cake and ice cream. And I said to myself, I can't take this anymore. So I said, I'm sorry, I did it. I said, now you can take your seat now. You know, it was interesting that in that moment in my life, in my 8-year-old mind, that I began to understand what injustice was about.
Yes. Yes.
And
Integrity.
integrity. And I had to confess to something that I did not do just to get out of trouble.
Yeah.
And that thing is still with me right now. I mean, it might seem simple to people listening to me, but when I see injustice on the street and people doing things, it brings me back to that moment of injustice. People going to prison for crimes they did not commit. People being blamed. And I think that stays with me. When people blame me for things that I didn't do, I'm not responsible for, it makes me very angry.
Right.
And I think it's tied to some of the things that I had to pay for.
Yeah.
That wasn't even my responsibility.
Yeah. Yeah. And here's how I know, this is how we know trauma. This is how, actually, I'm going to show you guys something. This is how we define trauma. I was in 2nd grade. The acorn that was tossed hit the kid, not in their back, not on their knees, but in their face. I was made to stand in a corner. It was someone's birthday. You're painting the picture as though it happened just yesterday, right? There's no doubt in your mind. It is as clear because same like Leslie, what the brain does, the brain memorializes it. It takes pictures.
And crops it.
That's right. That's right. It takes pictures and it crops and it fuses it in the brain, and it stays there. So that business of standing in the corner, the lasting impact of trauma is that it wasn't just that one moment got walled off and got resolved and settled. It was that moment is played over and over again in your life. And probably makes you, so when you say justice, it's probably not only for yourself, but when you see people are being treated unfairly, it really, that's right. It makes you want to fight for them, right? To do something, right? To rise up for them. And so it's become a theme for your life. So here's one thing I'm going to say to you on that. So one is the trauma, the moment of the traumas, and how it impacted you, how it shaped your life, how it shaped that young boy who had no power, who is an immigrant. The socks that, I mean, you painted so many pictures there just now, right? Right? So many things just in those couple of minutes. It's memorialized. It shaped your future. In our work, we sometimes refer to what we call narrative. I don't want to use the word therapy because it's not necessary here, but narrative approach. And that is, how do you take what was done to you? It's what Joseph says. You meant it for my bad, but God meant it for my good. How do you take what has happened and become the advocate that you are? So if you were sitting down writing that story, in fact, I would send you home to do a homework to say, write 3 pages to that 7-year-old youngster. What would you say to him? What would you tell him? Would you tell him that he didn't suffer in vain? Would you tell him that he's all right? Would you tell him that, what's his name? Elie Wiesel, the Jewish writer who survived the concentration camps, in his book called Night. And he talks about, he ends the book by saying that after the end of the war, he saw himself, just like the way I saw myself in the mirror, said he looked at the little boy in the mirror and he was skinny, emaciated, been through all kinds of trauma. And he says that he wanted to promise that little skin and bones that he was going to use that experience to make the world a better place. So I would say, what would you pen that the acorn wasn't you, but you did what you had to do in that moment to really, because you had no power, and that's okay, because now you have some power. Not only that, but now you're standing up for all the little boys and girls, grown and young, who were cheated out of justice, who were made to stand as though they're nobody, that you turn out all right. And so part of it is going back, right? And you might not have spoken to that 7-year-old boy in a while. You might have been working on his behalf, working on his behalf. But what would it mean to go back and to sing and dance with him and tell him that he's all right?
I think that was brilliant, because when you asked what would you say to the 7-year-old, I had no words. The only thing I thought was, bro, you're in this country, and it's all hell right now. To be honest with you, but the way you framed that gave me some hope. You know, not that I didn't feel hopeless, but the way you packaged that, because in my mind, I'm looking at that little boy, and I'm thinking to myself, you were dealt a lot of injustice. But as you got older, it was like, it's payback time.
Right.
That's how I felt as a kid, because when I got people that bullied me, as I got to be 13, I got taller than them,
That's right.
and I was looking over them, I'm like, you remember me?
That's right. And that's exactly what happened. That's how we reassert our power. And now at a different place, you use that power differently, right? For good, right? Not to pay back, but to do justice.
Yes. Yes, I think I'll take that. And I'm going to take it, I'm going to hold on to that.
Question. Do you regret taking the blame for something that you didn't do, or did you just feel like you had to do what you had to do in the moment?
Like, you know what? I felt like I'm standing here, my feet are tired. I feel like a monkey in a cage, and everybody is looking at me. I had to stand up in the corner right there, and the whole class is having fun and looking at me. And I didn't do it. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, this is crazy. I'm being punished for something I didn't do. You know? And I think that even as a grown man now, he's a leader, things happen to people, it's like, oh. And I was like, you know what? I'm not responsible for that. So when people don't take responsibility for their things, it bothers me deeply. And when they want to blame me for their own dysfunction. Maybe it's tied to that in some way.
Yes.
But if you stay for 12 weeks, I'll have a story every 12 weeks, I promise you.
But can I just say that like there is something quite fascinating about these kind of spaces. This is church. This is healing. This is a healing space, and we don't usually define it as such, but this is also, we could call this segment, this is what healing looks like. Okay? This is what healing looks like.
And when Bishop was just talking, Bishop said he took the blame for it and he didn't do it. And in my situation with my friend Vicky, my brother's guard sister, I felt like maybe if I would have went with her, so I carried that around with me for years.
Yeah.
That maybe if I would have went with her, it wouldn't have happened. And I do remember coming home, when I finally came home, my siblings, they did hug me. And I think that's why I have a deep love for family, because I remember them greeting me when I walked in the door, even though they get on my nerves.
Of course, and they're supposed to.
So bad. But I love them. I love my family.
Yeah.
Because I remember my mind goes back to when I came home and I saw my mother and I saw my brothers and my sisters. It was like I was on a milk cart and then came home and returned to them. Yeah. So I remember that embrace and that love. But I did take blame that maybe if I would have went with her, maybe if I told her to wait. And I was always telling myself, why didn't I go with her? Why didn't I go with her? Maybe it wouldn't have happened.
I wish if we had more, well, not tonight, but I want you to know that, like, this is the stuff that I teach a course now on trauma that is being taught across the entire country. I teach it at Fordham University. And there's a thing that as you listen for the story, there's a way to listen. And as you listen for the story, all of that begins to come out. And there's a particular case that I'm teaching, that I just finished teaching, And the little girl, it's a tragic story where there was a domestic violence issue, and the little girl was in her room, and her mom and her dad was going at it, and it's bad stuff happened. But the point I really want to make is to what you said, Leslie. By the way, we're family now, so is that as all of that is happening, this is a little girl. She gets up, she listens at the door. She says, "My heart was beating so hard, I thought my father would have heard it." She said, "Should I call 911? What if I climb through the window and go get help from the neighbor? Maybe I should go in the room and tell him to stop. Maybe I should do this." And what I do is I have people read all of these stuff and begin to highlight them. It's something we call it some cognitive rumination. And you have to highlight all of them. And the reason for that is that if you go back to cognitive distortions, right, if you go back to cognitive distortion, well, just the distorted thinking. You could pull any one of them, a couple of them from there, including personalization and blaming. Is that or the negative thinking, is what you get is that in the moment, you're having all of these conversations, and maybe you should, what if you this, what if you that, and then what begins to happen is that after the aftermath, all of those shoulda, woulda, coulda begin settling in. Yeah. Yeah, they begin to settle in. And it's not only in that moment, you then take it with you for many, many years after. And so the guilt, the shame, the helplessness, the self-blame that maybe is, we have family members who have passed away and we blame ourselves. Maybe if we had taken him to a different doctor, maybe if we had done this, maybe if we had done that. And that's another word for hell. It's wicked, it's cruel. It doesn't have an ending. And not only doesn't have an ending, but it's turned where? It turned inward.
All right. Let's breathe. And you want to give us a breathing exercise? Can we just take a deep breath, everybody? Just take a deep breath.
Yeah, just sit up straight, like my sons tell me. Take a deep breath in and exhale. And breathe in and exhale. Remember that you are loved. Remember that you belong. Remember that God loves you. In our imperfection, He loves us. All of our past, all of our memories, the ones that are suppressed, the ones that are right beneath the surface, and the ones that are dancing on top of the water. God knows them all. And He loves you. He wants you to know that you don't have to blame yourself for yesteryears, for mistakes made. You can't go back and change the beginning, one person says, but you could start where you are now and make a brand new ending. You can't go back and change the beginning, but you could start where you are now and make a brand new ending. Breathe in and breathe out. And open your eyes.
Come on, put your hands together, everybody. Wow. I think we have so much. All tonight has shown me is that we have so much work to do. And how much we have stepped over so much stuff. You know, It's like you step over all, people are dead, and you step over bodies. You gotta get to the bathroom. And each body we stepped over had a story. But we had to get to the bathroom. And what tonight showed me is sometimes we gotta backtrack and go back to those bodies and get the story for everything that was stepped over. Because the very bodies are actually different stages of our own lives that had to die to exist. I'm not trying to sound like a therapist, stuff like that.
You're doing a good
I'm not
job.
trying to sound deep. You know what I mean? But I want you to know that I love you, sir.
I love you too, my brother.
And
I love you.
this right here, honestly, started with my first wife and my current wife. They have helped me a lot. And then even with what's happening with our church, with our teams, and the agenda that Lady D started, and with the Real Talk team, I just want them to know, I know they're watching, some of them are here not, that the work, I recognize the deep need for this work, that this space that we're in, I'm realizing how much we can do ministry, and we're bleeding. And because we have enough bandages on them, I just tell a quick story. So when we were, a couple years ago, I had a hernia. It ruptured here, and it actually was a result of preaching. And so one day, I didn't know what was happening to me. I was in so much pain. And so when I went in the office to take a shower, I saw a big bulge right here. And I was freaking out, like, what's going on? And I took my finger, and I could push my intestines back in. And I pushed it in. And I realized I only had that pain on Sundays. And that was because I'm standing and speaking to people. I'm putting pressure on my abdomen. It pushed up my, and so we had to go to DR, to a conference, Bishop Bismarck. And so I knew what to do now. You preach, and you pop your intestines back in. And that was what I had to do, because I had the surgery scheduled after. So we're in the big stadium, and thousands of people, and the service was amazing. That's the service that we're at. And after that service was done, I went in the back room, and I used my finger, and I pushed my intestines back in. And then I had to have the surgery, and they put the mesh in, et cetera, et cetera. And I just thought about how we give so much, and people don't even understand that at your expense, when everybody's like, oh, amen, like you said, good word, my foot. Because when you're done with all that, you're going in the back room and pushing your stomach back in. And nobody knows that.
Nobody knows or understands that. Yeah, and that's why I find, and you talk about your wife, my wife is like the greatest healer that I know, because she insists on having a whole man. She insists on it in ways that I don't care. Like she insists that she insists on figuring out the kind of balance and self-care and nurturing and protecting that it's I don't have words for it. It's because left to my own device, I probably wouldn't be good. I wouldn't be good. I wouldn't be good for the people of God, and I wouldn't be good for me. And so she serves as a guardian of sustainability. And we need that. we sort of need that kind of, and it may not be your spouse. It could be, a brother in the church that runs with you, that makes sure that, like, come on now, it's time for you to go. Like, And sometimes even, and if you're anything, I don't know sort of your brain wiring, but I can tell you, like, after I finish preaching, my brain goes, and don't talk to me too much, because it's as though I'm in
Depleted.
I don't have anything to give. And people will come to you and say,
No, they come knock on the door.
yeah.
Bishop!
And I'm sitting there and I'm like, but the truth is,
I want to leave the
spent.
building.
Yeah.
I'm done. I'm finito. I need to leave the building.
Yeah.
Can I tell you a story real quick? I'm going to get out of here for real. So I was sharing with Crystal, right? So, when I was going to have the surgery, right? I was on the stretcher. You know when you go into the operating room?
Yeah.
And you have the two double doors and and you
Yeah.
hit it?
Yeah. And
So
the bright
I
lights.
had the IV in my arm, and the anesthesiologist is talking. And while they're pushing me in the operating room,
Yeah.
these two individuals in the church are having a dispute. And one of them said something to the other, and they're upset about it. And they know I'm going into surgery. And they're sending me the text.
Yeah.
As the wheels of the operating cart is hitting the double doors.
Yep.
I was like, what the hell is wrong with these people? No, I'm being honest with you. All right, we got to end it now. We're going to end the live. We're going to end the live. We're ending the live. But to be honest with you, no, I'm being honest with you. This is why I feel the way I do a lot of times. Because no matter what you do, people will take from you. They'll suck your blood out like a vampire.
Yeah.
And